Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the Position 4 tier list for patch 7.31b, and as always, before we jump into it, I'm just going to let you know how I arrived at this list. So first I look at the Trends tab, I look at the Divine and Immortal games across all pubs, the win rate, pick rate, etc. Then I mainly look at the Dota 2 Pro Tracker and DPC meta, and I value that a little bit higher than these trends. But still, I have to, just pick and choose where I should put each hero based on, that data and kind of compiling it. So it is a little bit subjective. It's kind of also my feel. So obviously, if you disagree or agree, you can let me know in the comments and give a like and all those kinds of things. And without further ado, let's just jump into the S tier. So S tier, the first hero is going to be Keeper of the Light. So basically, this hero was really overpowered, I think. Again, like 6 months ago, we were even seeing Keeper of the Light mid, all these different things with this hero, and then they kind of nerfed it, they changed it, it just completely disappeared and was completely in the dumpster. It was F tier in my last tier list, and now this hero has basically come back to become a really, really good support, largely because this hero can like farm really quickly. You can get your Ags, you can get all these different things, you can get the Ag Scepter, which is really, really good. This Will-O-Wisp is insane. This hero was just buffed in general. We can see the radius of Illuminate was changed a little bit. Yes, the spell amp from Null Talismans was taken away, so the mid coddle is not that great, but that's why it's a 4 position now mainly, because it can clear waves and everything really fast and basically be like another core. I've seen a lot of heroes or a lot of coddles in my games basically transition into another core. They're basically like a 4th core, which is kind of insane. This spell always pretty good. Then Chakra Magic is just really good to spam in lane to keep certain heroes that are, spam spells that you can lane with in the off lane. Make sure that they have mana. And there's just some pairings with Coddle right now that are just really, really good. So this hero is just high up in the meta. It's very hotly contested. It's pretty good even in pros. It's not like super great in pros, but it's still generally decent in pros. I'm not a big Keeper of the Light player, so I don't know all the ins and outs of the hero, but it's just really, really good right now, being picked a lot. Next, we have Primal Beast. So Primal Beast was at the top of our off-lane list, and it's also really, really good as a 4-position support, largely because, you do fall off a little bit later in the game. So even though it's a really good off-laner, if you don't get your items, if you don't get your timings, if you don't stomp the game, it's kind of like, oh, great, now I'm not going to have as much impact. I kind of just charge in and use my ult, but as a 4 position, that's pretty much what you're going to do anyway, and it's still extremely effective. You don't even really need all that much farm on this hero. You can just, use your really good spells to stomp the lane, to rotate around, to go mid, to transition to the, your carries lane, kill the off lane. You can just make a ton of space, cause a lot of havoc in team fights and in the game in general, and you're just the 4 position. You're just a support. So even if they try to deal with you, they try to kill you, they try to bring you down with your high HP and your insane impact in fights, you're just the 4 position. So now there's, 3 other cores that they still have to deal with, and it's very, very hard to deal with you as a Primal Beast. And again, like I said, you just stomp the lane as well, like normally, like from the off lane. So this hero is extremely, extremely good right now as a 4 position. And lastly, we have Pugna. So Pugna was buffed in some ways. It's actually been buffed in a lot of patches recently. They buffed the distance of Nether Blast a bunch. They changed Decrepify a little bit, because it can be casted while channeling. The Nether Ward is just like better. It's just been gotten, it's always decent against certain heroes, but now it's gotten better over time with a lot of buffs. And then also they have this shard now where basically you can target your Nether Ward and you basically drain everything in that AoE, which is really, really good, especially in team fights. This hero can even go mid a little bit. It's just not as great of a mid as it used to be, but it's still possible. But now from the 4 position, it's like a dominant hero. It can be super annoying in lane. You're also really high movement speed, so you can get in and out of fights. You can kind of harass people really well with this hero. There's so many things about the hero that is really, really good right now. And Pugna is highly contested in the pros, highly contested in high MMR pubs. Just a really great hero. So that's the S tier. Now, I will say, this S tier is largely just based off statistics and what's being picked in the pros, but there are some other heroes here in the A tier that could even be in the S tier. I think the difference between S and A tier is largely subjective right now. I just kind of went with the statistics and what they say and what's being picked the most and what has the highest win rate. But in this A tier now, we have Monkey King, which Monkey King, even though in the pubs, like if you go to the trends, Monkey King is actually one of the worst heroes in general when you just look at overall pubs in like Divine and above. But this hero is like the most hotly contested contested hero in all of the pro scene, and that's largely because of its ability to be flexed into the carry and 4 position role. And from the 4 position role, this hero is like kind of another core, just like Coddle can be. Even like Primal Beast can do a lot without items. This hero is absolutely ridiculous. You can buy like 2 items, a couple items. You cast your ultimate in a team fight, and you are basically another core. It's impossible for the enemy to fight into this guy's ultimates, especially once you get, maybe you even get a basher later. You can get defusal early because of the way that defusal is cheaper now. You can get just a bunch of different small items, and you just have insane impact. You can also gank. You can be effective in lane. You can give a lot of vision and scout, which is really, really good with the shard as well. So Monkey King is just a really good 4 position right now, even though I think people in pubs don't really play the hero very intelligently, and they kind of just lose a lot, but it's still really good in the high MMR pubs. So that's why I put it up here. Next, we have Skywrath Mage. Skywrath Mage is just generally good for the reason that Sky is good. It's a bursty hero, does a ton of magic damage, and right now there's just, I think this hero wasn't relevant for a long time, got small buffs here and there, and now it's just really good from the 4 position. You can kind of own lanes with this hero, and you can transition again into another kind of core. You can get, you can either get your Rod of Atos, which then you can just kill people full to 0, or you can get other small items to help your team, to, make yourself survivable. If you don't really need that Rod of Atos because someone else has some kind of long duration stun that you can just cast your ultimate on, that works as well. So you just have the options there. And I think the build with this hero, you can kind of build a lot of different things now, which is really, really good. This hero just absolutely stomps games. I am a pretty decent Skywrath player. I like to play the hero from the 4 position because you can just really transition to that other core and just dominate the game. Next, we have Mirana. Mirana is that typical classic 4 position. You can use your arrow to farm creeps from the big camp early on in the game to get your own experience. You have that invis later. You can kind of do a lot of damage. You can set up with the arrow, or if you have an arrow set up, you can stun for extremely long with the arrow. This hero is just an all-around decent 4 position for all the main reasons that Mirana usually is. Same thing with Rubik. Rubik is just pretty good right now, and with the way that the steel works and also the small buffs to like Ags and things like that, this hero is pretty decent, pretty relevant, and just all around a good hero for all the reasons that Rubik usually is. But just right now, these 2 heroes are strong. Same thing with Earth Spirit. Earth Spirit has been kind of on the uptrend, and now it's pretty good. I see a lot of Earth Spirits. If you're a good Earth Spirit player, you can just absolutely dominate games. It's impossible to get away from this hero. He can have super high impact in the early game, can basically solo win early games by rotating around, getting kills on the mid, getting kills on the enemy carry, doing so much in the lane, and then later on in the game, he's just such a nuisance to deal with as well. Next, we have Io. So Io is one of these heroes that it's like debatable whether this hero should be S tier or A tier. It's also kind of more of a 5 position. It just depends. But the big reason why it's not S tier here is largely because either it plays 5 position more, or it's because, in pros it's really, really good, but I just don't think that in pubs it's that good. So I just have to give it a little bit, make it a little bit less, a little bit lower on the tier list, just because people in pubs don't know how to play it. They don't pick it really well. They don't relocate well. People just don't know what they're doing with the hero. So to just say it's like, oh, it's the best hero, you should pick it all the time, it's just not the way it is. But it's really, really good. It's really solid right now. It gets paired up with a lot of different heroes like Storm, and it can be very effective. Clockwork, surprisingly, is on the way up. This hero is just generally pretty good. They've kind of changed a little bit of the way this hero works. They made his hook cooldown less. They've just done a lot of things to make this hero pretty good now. And I think in the 4 position, it can absolutely dominate lanes. If like anyone gets out of position, like the 5 position support, he can chase them down. He can get solo kills. And then later on in the game, he scales pretty well as a 4 position, causing a lot of havoc, initiating team fights, catching people out of position, rocketing Roche Pit, giving vision, all these kinds of things, split pushing the map from across the map with rocket, all really good things like that. Death Prophet is the next one. Death Prophet is probably one of the best offlaners right now. Really, really strong hero. One of the best heroes. And it's just up here in the A tier because it's been flex picked in the DPC in pro games. You can pick it in almost any position, pretty much except carry, but even that works. And so it's not picked a lot in the 4 position, but it's still picked enough that it is a good 4 position. It works, it's effective, and it deserves this A tier. Shadow Shaman, just another one kind of like Rubik, kind of like Mirana, just pretty good right now. Overall, it just is good for all the reasons Shaman is good, and just the win rate, the statistics bear this out, so I have to put it in the A tier. Even though I don't think it's the best, I don't think it's comparable to all these other ones, the statistics say that it's pretty good right now, even though it's not like the most hotly contested in the DPC. In pro level pubs, it's pretty good. Next, we have Enchantress. Enchantress is kind of insane right now. from both the 4 and the 5 position, mainly from the 4 position. I could even maybe have put Enchantress in the S tier, but it just doesn't have the best win rates to put it up there like these other heroes. But this hero's crazy with all the new creeps that you can get in the jungle. It's ridiculous. This hero also transitions to like another core if you're good with it because of the impetus damage that just does so much damage. And that's honestly one of the main reasons. I think the main reason this hero is good now is because of all of the jungle creeps that you can get. And you can just dominate lanes with it. You can push towers. You can do so many different things with all these creeps and their abilities. And then lastly, in the A tier, we have Marcy. I think Marcy's kind of fallen off. It's not really as popular as it once was, but it's still one of these heroes that's super annoying to deal with. If you have a Marcy in your lane, if you're playing against a Marcy 4 and you're a carry or a support, you just have to be so careful because this hero can just jump on you and, toss you back, stun you, kill you full to 0 after like level 2, 3 in the lane. It's just so annoying to deal with. I think later in the game, it kind of falls off. It's not that great. It feels weird to play later in the game, but that laning stage is just so good. And if you're playing it as 4 position, you don't really need to do much in the game other than, catch people out, get your stun off, all these kinds of things, chase people down later on in the game. So I don't think it's really that important that it does fall off later as a 4 position. So that is the A tier. Next, we're going to move on to B tier. So B tier, the first one we're going to have here is Techies. So actually, in my opinion, I actually think Techies is S tier. I personally think, and if this was completely on my personal, subjective, just what I think Techies deserves S tier right now. I just think people don't know how to play it. People are not very good with it. But from the 4 position, you can get your items. You can get all the items that you need, like Ethereal Blade and all this stuff, to make this hero insane. And I've seen this hero just absolutely stomp games from the 4 position. I think this hero is insanely good right now. I've seen this hero kill Tiny like full to 0 from the 4 position even. You don't even need to be mid. You can get good item timings with this hero. You can be really annoying, a huge nuisance, especially with the Shard. The Shard is so good. You jump in, you stun them, you do damage to them, you place some mines down, you use your Q, you activate your disarm. If they try to hit you, they can't kill you, and then you just blow them up. You do insane damage. The slow is also ridiculous. Like when you hit somebody with your Q and they're slowed and then it explodes and they're still slowed, that slow is ridiculous. You can't get away from this hero. And it's not like, it's not like a bug from Weaver. It's not like the Grimstroke silence. You can't do anything. Once you're hit with the slow, it's just on you. It feels so bad. You're like, I should be able to hit this thing and like get it off of me, but you just can't. It's ridiculous. I think Techies is really good, but just based on the win rates, I'm putting it here. Grimstroke is another one that's kind of weird because in China, this hero is super popular. It's one of the most hotly contested heroes in the DPC, but its win rate and its pick rate is pretty decent, but its win rate is just really bad in pubs. It's not really popular in a lot of other DPCs. It seems fairly good now ever since they reverted the change to the stun duration or the duration of leading up to the stun. But other than that, it just seems in a weird spot. We'll see if later on in the meta, if it develops, in the major, if it's really hotly contested, if China is right that it's good, or maybe it's back down here to the B tier. I'm just going to put it at B tier because this is what the statistics say. But yeah, that's Grimstroke. Bounty's kind of at a weird spot. It's pretty good. It can be okay in certain games, but it can just get stomped and have 0 impact in others. So it's B tier. The win rate and pick rate is okay. The pick rate is low, but the win rate's good, but it's just not, that great of a hero, so it's still B. It's consistently okay, but I think it deserves B, maybe even C. It could be put down to, but it's okay right now. Weaver's kind of fallen off since last patch. I think it's still good, but it's not the best. It used to be S tier. It was one of the best 4 positions last patch, but now it just kind of fell off because it got nerfed, but it still does what it used to do, just not as well. Treant's kind of on the upswing. It has decent pick rate and win rate. It's just not hotly contested in a lot of pro scenes, but I think it's okay right now. We'll see if Treant becomes a little more popular later on in the meta. Hoodwink, pretty good for all the reasons Hoodwink is usually popular and good. Just pretty stable as a hero. Not the best, not the worst, just okay. Ricky used to be really bad a few patches ago, but now it's getting a little bit better. You can even play this 4 position almost like a Monkey King in the sense that you're just 4 position, you can have the impact that you have, but then you can get an early diffusal and just transition to another core and just basically play carry, honestly, from the 4 position. And you have good impact with the 15-minute shard, with that setup, with the cheaper diffusal blade. You can be a super impactful core as Ricky. Next, we're going to go to Invoker. Invoker is really good as a mid right now, but also can be a decent support. In the past, Invoker support was kind of a thing, but it was pretty crappy. Now it's kind of okay. It's viable, it's possible, it has a decent win rate, so I have to put it here, even though I kind of wouldn't love to see Invoker support in my game. I think 4-position Invoker is viable, and the win rate, even though it's not picked much, the win rate kind of bears that out. But I would probably put it lower, but that's what the statistics say. Pangolier, very good right now in the off lane, even a really good mid, and can play 4-position. It's viable, it's possible, especially in the pros where they kind of flex pick stuff. It's not like highly picked, but it is there, and the win rate bears it out of being B tier. These two are ones I would probably put lower. Same thing with Veno. I think Veno is more of an offlaner, more of a core role, because when you play it as 4, it just feels really weird. You don't have stuns. It doesn't really do very much, and then you're not getting a lot of levels. You're not getting a lot of farm. It just feels weird. The win rate, again, puts it here, but I don't love the hero. It's just decent for all the ways that it can have impact without having a lot of items, but it just feels kind of less impactful when you don't have all those items. And early on, you can't like just defend all the towers and cause a lot of chaos. And then Venge, pretty good right now, but not the best. With the damage reduction on swap against some matchups, I think it's very matchup dependent whether that swap is really good. The thing that makes this hero really good and on the upswing actually is the fact that it has that ability to stun 2 targets now, which is really, really good with its stun. It kind of can jump from one to the other, which is pretty cool. So with that, it kind of is on the upswing. Right now, the win rate kind of places it here, but I think it may even be A tier or a little bit higher in the coming months. So look out for that. Venge is decent right now. Next, we have C tier. C tier has Spearbreaker to start. Spearbreaker just kind of dropped off a cliff with the nerfs and the change in the meta. It's still okay, but it's just not nearly as good as it once was. Shadow Demon is good against some heroes that, like, you know, if you really need that purge, if you really need that save against like Necro, he's good against some things, but he's not great against others. So that's why he's here. Also, I think generally people aren't very good with him, so that's why he's in C tier, because his win rate is almost always really low because he's very rarely popular. So that's why he's down here. Silencer is at an okay spot, but just not great, especially from 4, maybe more of a 5 position right now. Wind Ranger, still not great. That Shard is pretty good, but just not the best. In pubs, you can definitely pick this hero and transition into another core, kind of like a Monkey or a Ricky. You can definitely do that. Lina definitely is a good 4 position. We'll just see how that change makes her viable or less viable. I think she's a little bit too slow, too squishy right now, but her laning stage is better. So look for her to be kind of on the upswing right now in the 4 position, because her laning stage is way better. With one spell, if you hit all the creeps and a hero or 2, you can get so many stacks. Like you can, you know, you can be way more mana efficient with that right now. But the win rate kind of bears it out to be C, but I think it is on the upswing. Tusk, it's actually better as an offlaner right now, which is kind of surprising, but I think it's a pretty good 4 position. It's just that the win rate is generally pretty low, and it doesn't have a lot of, it's not contested, it's not highly contested, it doesn't have a lot of picks in the pro scene, so it's at the C tier right now. And lastly, we have D and F tier. D tier, we have Willow, Lion, Earthshaker, Nyx, Snapfire, Enigma, and Zeus. All these heroes are pretty bad and just in a bad spot. Either they were really good at one time and then got nerfed. Like Lion's been around for a long time. You know, Nyx was pretty good for a long time. Even Snapfire was pretty good for a long time. They just keep consistently getting nerfed now because, you know, they've been good for so long that they keep getting nerfed. And I think this is the patch where they kind of fall off and they're not really good anymore. Willow's kind of been at a weird spot. She got okay for a bit, but then fell off. Earthshaker's just not been great for a long time. Enigma is not a good 4 position, I think. He just is way too greedy. Zeus with the change, I think Zeus mid is absolutely terrible right now. It's better as a 4 position, but it's still not that great. Just as a 4 position, you can kind of get away with being that 4 position because you have some kind of escape. As mid, you just do no damage. But now at least you can deward, you can do some damage in the early game, but still it's not good. And then lastly, we have F tier. This tier is just the dog shit tier, the terrible tier. Basically, Phoenix is just really bad right now. I don't know why it's so bad. It seems okay in some games, but it's just not great. The Elder Titan that used to be good, you know, in the past patches at TI and stuff is just not around anymore. That hero got nerfed a lot, and now it just seems terrible. I know in pubs it has a terrible win rate around 40%, largely because people don't really know how to play it, but even in pros it's not getting contested. It's not getting picked up as much as it was. Pudge, 4 position, you know, Pudge support always really bad, still really bad. The change that happened to his E, to his passive, mainly allowed him to be a little bit better of a core. Still a very bad support, but people are going to pick it anyway. And lastly, we have Sniper, who's just a terrible support right now. More of a core, more of a carry, and a mid. Really bad. Don't go that Ags build. It hasn't been a thing for a while. I might even take this hero off the list because it doesn't really play support very much, but I still see some people picking it. So in any case, that is the 4-position tier list for 7.31B. Let me know what you think. If you think heroes should be higher or lower, what you think about this S and A tier, things should be switched around, etc. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. Join the Discord if you haven't already to request replay reviews. I do them every Friday. And then I'm also going to do community days where we play community games every Saturday as well. So get in the Discord to make sure you keep track of that and can get in on that. And also go to my Patreon if you haven't already to get coaching or support me in general if you want to see more content like this in the future. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.